Hi everybody, welcome to our grammar clinic, Grammar for IELTS. I'm Alex from E2 Language. Hello, those of you who are here with me on Zoom. Please type hi into the chat box. Just let me know you can hear me and see me clearly. Hi Camilla in Brazil. Hey Dorothy, Asil, Lakvinda, welcome to class. Is anyone joining me for the first time? Felipe, yes, Richa, Gunjan, Camilla as well. Oh, lots of you, well done. And hello if you're watching on YouTube. I'm watching the chat box here on Zoom, but I will pop into YouTube a little later. So it's a beautiful Friday here in Melbourne. I hope life is good where you are. In this class today, I'm going to just recap really briefly what we've covered in the recent grammar clinics. And if you are an E2 member, with any paid package, you can access the previous grammar clinics from the last 6 weeks. I think we've been doing it. So I'm going to start by just showing you what we've already practiced in the grammar classes. And then we're going to do grammar, of course. But it's fun grammar, so don't panic. Easy, well, not easy grammar, but it will be logical and easy to understand. So in our recent series, these are the things we've covered. I know some of you have been to all of these classes. We covered complex sentences, common errors, articles, punctuation, prepositions. Last week we did verb tenses. How did you guys go with your verb tenses this week? Did you do some study? Did you use the worksheet? Feeling more confident? Oh, Almaty, middle of the night for you. Sorry about that. Verb tenses was intense. Okay, that's good. Hopefully you've done a little bit of practice during the week and put it into real practice in the writing classes. So this is what we're doing today, relative clauses part 1. And next week we're going to do part 2. I've broken it up because it's an important grammar point and quite a big one as well. Luis, I'll show you at the end where to find the downloads and the videos and stuff. But basically in the recorded classes section, if you have a paid package, you can find everything in there. So today we'll start with dictation. I'm going to read 4 sentences to you. I'll show you on the criteria why relative clauses are important, why we need to know them. Then we're going to do relative clauses rules, but lots and lots of practice. At the end, I'll share some extra stuff with you, Q&A as well. And our theme today is health. So most of the vocab is related to health. Now, we've just launched this brand new, really good value package. If you are on the fence, not sure if you want to subscribe or not, the Showtime package, this is especially for you guys who have your test coming up soon, like under 30 days. And our packages at E2, they contain all different things depending on what suits you. So this one is really good if you have 30 days. You get a study planning session with a teacher. You get a 45-minute one-on-one tutorial. You get a study plan, which you can see here. You get to do the mock test and you get unlimited classes plus lots more. So I'll share the link with you at the end of class. But if you are feeling a bit nervous about your preparation, the Showtime package is probably a good one for you. It's a lot for a really cheap price, actually. So the assessments included here are in the mock test. So that's kind of the difference that you'll see, Richa, between some of the packages. Some contain extra assessments. This one, the assessments are built into the mock test. So you'll get writing, task 1, task 2 feedback, and a speaking test with feedback. All right, let's talk more about that later. Here's our live class schedule for this week. Yes, Stephanie includes recorded classes. All the paid packages include recorded classes. We're here in the grammar class. Coming up later today, listening and speaking. Over the weekend, we have our writing master classes. Really good chance to put your grammar into practice there. Let's get started. We're going to do dictation, guys. You know what it means? Think back to high school, right? So the teacher reads a sentence. In this case, I'm going to read 4 sentences. And you're going to type as quickly as you can into the chat box. I'm gonna keep the chat box open. So if it's distracting, just write on a piece of paper or type in another box. If you're watching on YouTube, go for it in the chat box. See who can get there the fastest and the most accurately as well. Okay, let me know, everyone. Are you ready? Get my sentences up. Almadi, yes, remind me at the end of class. Ready, ready, ready. That's the spirit. Okay, here we go. Sentence number 1. The government introduced a new law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. The government introduced a new law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. The government introduced a new law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. Number 2, people who are suffering acute symptoms should call their doctor. People who are suffering acute symptoms should call their doctor. Number 3, the staff who work in the emergency department need masks. The staff who work in the emergency department need masks. The staff who work in the emergency department need masks. Great job, you guys. Number 4, COVID-19 is a virus which affects the respiratory system. COVID-19 is a virus which affects the respiratory system. Fantastic work happening here on Zoom. Well done, you guys. Affects or effects in number 4? Affects or effects? One's a noun, one's a verb. Let's see. Here are the answers. So check your own work if you can still find it in the chat box. The government introduced a new law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. People who are suffering acute symptoms should call their doctor. The staff who work in the emergency department need masks. COVID-19 is a virus which affects the respiratory system. Give yourself a score out of 4. And it was affects. Nice work, everyone. Okay, that's just step 1. Now, really quickly, let's do some vocab review, a little quiz here. Just type your answers into the chat box. Let's see who's the fastest. Question number 1, from these words, which one means critical, severe? Oh, Erica, well done. Felipe, so close. Acute. So critical, severe symptoms, acute. Question 2, which words mean related to breathing? Sorry, which word means related to breathing? Gunjan, you got it. Respiratory. Well done. Number 3, which word means bands? Well done. Was that Lewis, I think? Prohibits. Are you feeling nervous with this pressure? I'm feeling nervous. I'm not even playing. Number 4, which word means feelings or problems that show you have an illness? Oh, Gunjan, you got it. Symptoms. Okay, so these are feelings or problems that show you're sick, symptoms. Number 5, experiencing pain or unpleasant emotions. Yara, well done. Suffering. Good job. Now, you can give yourself a score for that. This vocab, a lot of this vocab I'll just mention, comes from topic toolkit, what is it, 13, I think, which is about health. If you go to your course, go to the vocab section, look for this topic toolkit, all about health vocabulary. But we are here for grammar, so let's get into it, shall we? And Yara, yep, any paid package, you have access to all the topic toolkits. Okay, so here are our sentences again. Now, you probably know, but what do they all have in common? In terms of grammar, they all have something similar. What is it? got my glasses. Very good, Jay. That's correct, Yara. So they all have relative clauses. That's what we're practicing today. Now, this is a relative clause that prohibits gathering in large numbers. Who are suffering acute symptoms? Who work in the emergency department, which affects the respiratory system. I can't choose which pronunciation to use, British or American. Okay, so the question is, why do we need relative clauses in IELTS writing? Like, you know, that's great. It's a grammar point, but why do we have to have them in our writing to score well? As always, we refer to the criteria. So the examiner is going to give you a score for each. 25% of your score is for grammar. And if we zoom in and look at band 7, the first dot point says, uses a variety of complex structures. Okay, variety of complex structures. Now, what is a complex structure? That's the question. So essentially, we're going to look at essentially there are 3 things that make a complex structure or a complex sentence. They are relative clauses, subordinate clauses, and participle clauses. Now, a few weeks ago, and almost every week in our live classes, we practiced subordinate clauses. Can someone quickly remind me in the chat box, what is it? It uses subordinating conjunctions. Pushpa, that's coordinating, fanboys, not fanboys, the other stuff. That's it, yeah. Although, even though, if, not however, Jay, while, yeah. So those are when we create complex sentences, we can review that in the live class library using subordinating conjunctions. So a word like while, since, as, because, sticking sentences together. All right, but today we are going to work on the other kind of complex structure, which is relative clauses. Okay, so why do we use them? In this first sentence, right, the government introduced a new law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. I could split that into different parts. The government introduced a new law, and that new law prohibits gathering. Why do I want to use a relative clause there? Yeah, it's a way to put more information into a sort of small space. Really good, Dorothy, less duplication, so I don't have to repeat myself over and over. So I just want to give you more information about this word. The relative clause helps me do that. So I can fit more information into a smaller space. I guess it's about efficiency. Okay, so this gives me more information about a person, more information about a thing, sometimes more information about a situation. Okay, so for instance, the government introduced a new law. I want more information. So if I'm asking myself, well, which law did the government introduce? The law that prohibits gathering in large numbers. So it fills the gap in my question. Here, people should call their doctor, but not all people, right? Specific people, which people? I need to put in there a relative clause. People who are suffering acute symptoms should call their doctor. Yara, I'll talk about that in a second. The staff need masks. Well, which staff? Which ones specifically? The staff who work in the emergency department need masks. Notice with all these sentences, by the way, there's no commas needed before our relative pronouns. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Can you see the relative pronouns here? So the red part is the relative clause, the chunk. What's the relative pronoun? Yeah, that's right. Who, that, and which. So that, who, and which. So how do we know which relative pronoun to choose? Pretty easy to remember this. The government introduced a new law. So law, is it a thing or is it a person? It's a thing, definitely. So when it's a thing, we can use that or another word. Which word? Yes, that or which. So to answer your question, Yara, you could say that the government introduced a new law which prohibits gathering. That's fine. What about here? People. For people, we can use who or People are suffering. Yes, that's right. That. People that are suffering, people who are suffering. Both okay. Okay, for these ones, sentence 3 and 4, what other pronoun could I use? The staff who work. Good job. And COVID-19 is a virus which, who was that? Erica? Yes, that for people and things. Good. So we can say the staff who work, the staff that work. COVID-19 is a virus which affects or a virus that affects. All right, your turn. So I want you to make a sentence with a relative clause in it. So I've got two sentences here. People have stronger immune systems. So I'm asking myself which people, not all people, people exercise regularly. So I want you to take this idea and stick it inside the first sentence there. Okay, and I want you to write the whole thing into the chat box. So Jay, I would probably just move that sentence around a little bit. So people have stronger immune systems. Which people? That's my question. So think about which element of the sentence goes where. Good, Sarah. Rowena, good. Natalie, yes. Good, good, good. That's it. That's it. Now we've got it. So here we go. People who exercise regularly usually have stronger immune systems. Oh, sorry, I added that usually word. People who exercise regularly have stronger immune systems. Okay, so this is giving information about this noun here. All right, some more practice. I'm going to close the chat box for this one. So I can see what you're typing, but you can't see your classmates' work now. Same thing, I want you to take these two sentences and put them together. Now, please don't just randomly stick the relative clause anywhere. It has to make sense. So think about, after you write the sentence, does it make sense? Does it sound right? Because there's a couple of different places that they can go. So we've got children are more likely to become obese in adulthood. Which children? They eat junk food. The nurse was extremely kind. Which nurse? He works for a company. The company is developing a new vaccine. Okay, so this sentence is not describing he. This sentence is describing the company. 2.5 minutes. Let's do it. Right, just a few more seconds here on Zoom, and well done on YouTube. I was just checking on you guys as well. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, let's check. Now, keep in mind, Richa, that's totally fine if you're writing in your notebook or into a Word document. Absolutely no worries. I'm going to open up the chat box now. There we go. Now, I saw quite a variety of sentences. Many of them are correct. So I'm going to show you one option, and I'll try to answer your questions as we go. So possible answers. Number one, children who eat junk food are more likely to become obese in adulthood, or children that eat junk food, both okay. I think everybody had this same sentence. For number two, the nurse who helped us, or the nurse that helped us, was extremely kind. Most of you had the same thing there. Three, he works for a company that is developing a new vaccine, or he works for a company which is developing a new vaccine. Some of you wrote the company that he works for is developing a new vaccine, or the company which he works for. That's fine as well. Prince says, can I put commas here? The nurse, comma, who helped us. You can, but that's a non-defining relative clause. In this case, maybe there are 100 nurses and I want to specify this particular nurse. I'm giving you really important information, the nurse who helped us. No commas there. So defining relative clause. Okay, he works for a company. Number four, have you seen the pills that the nurse left here, or have you seen the pills which the nurse left here? Cam, yes, you can write that, but you don't need to change the verb tense there. Commas I'm going to talk about in a moment. You're always one step ahead of me, Yara. Reading my mind, I think. So give yourself a score. I think most of you got it right. Let's see. Tripti, yes. Have you seen the pills which were left by the nurse? Yes, you can do that. That's good. Erica, when we use who, it doesn't matter if the subject is singular or plural. That's correct. People who, or the man who. Good question. Sune, the nurse left pills here, comma, have you seen them? And there's no relative clause in that sentence, and you would need a full stop there. Okay. Now, before we get to commas, have a look at these four sentences. In one sentence, we can take out the relative pronoun. So often when you're reading academic texts, there is a relative clause there, but there's no relative pronoun. Okay, so sometimes we don't need the relative pronoun. We'll talk about that, the more complex version of that next week. But if you look here, one of these sentences, you can remove the pronoun. Which one? Can I say children eat junk food are more likely? The nurse helped us was extremely kind. He works for a company is, have you seen the pills the nurse left here? It's this one, number three. All of the others, you need that relative clause or it becomes an ungrammatical sentence. But this one, have you seen the pills the nurse left here? This one is okay to remove it. Why? Now we're getting into the tricky territory. Why this one and not the other ones? What's different? And it's not because it's a question, but good guess. Pushpa, that's pretty good. So let's look at sentence 2 compared to sentence 4. Okay, the nurse who helped us was extremely kind. The nurse helped us. She was extremely kind. So this is kind of like she. She helped us. She was extremely kind. Here, this is acting like the subject. So the nurse helped us. The nurse was extremely kind. But down here, number 4, it's not the same structure. Have you seen the pills? The nurse left them. Have you seen the pills? This is not the same as this. Have you seen the pills? The nurse left the pills. So this is actually the object. I'll give you a slightly different example. Have you seen the pills that cure the disease? So that is a sentence like number 2. Have you seen the pills that cure the disease? The pills cure the disease. But this one, have you seen the pills? The nurse left the pills. It's functioning like the object. Now, that's a really confusing way to think about it. So I'll just show you a easier way to remember, an easier way to know if you can take it out or not. Yep, Almaty, that is exactly right. Okay, so forget about subject and object and so on. An easy way to do it is if there's no noun or pronoun here, so the nurse who helped us, I've got a verb here. In that case, you keep the relative pronoun. So the pills that cure the disease, we have to keep the relative pronoun here. There's no person or thing after this relative pronoun. But this one, there is a noun or pronoun, the nurse, and then like a full sentence, the nurse left here. Sorry, full clause, the noun and verb. Have you seen the pills the nurse left here? Have you seen the pills that the nurse, which the nurse? They're all okay. So if there's a noun or pronoun, the relative pronoun is optional. If you can't remember, use the relative pronoun. That's another easy way around this rule. Am I confusing you? How are we going? Bit confusing. Okay. Let's do some practice and then we'll have another talk about it. Okay, so but basically keep in mind if there's a noun or pronoun here, sorry, no noun or pronoun after the relative clause, keep it in there. If it was a different sentence like the nurse who I spoke to earlier, so then I've got a pronoun I, then I can remove it because suddenly this becomes an object. Beatrice, that's good. All right, you have a go. So my question here is, can you remove the relative pronouns from this sentences? Right, yes or no. So number 1, the therapist that she was seeing. Is it okay, the therapist she was seeing? So read through, just write yes or no for each number. Here we go. And our answers. Okay, so 1, yes, you can remove it. The therapist she was seeing retired last month. The second one, we need to keep it. The nurse first gave the medication to those patients who were in the most pain. So the patients were in pain. Third one, although many smokers opposed the new law the government introduced, they obeyed it. So the government introduced the law, object. An easy way to remember, here's a noun. And the fourth one, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat box. Healthy eating habits parents teach their children can last a lifetime. Yes, remove. So 1, 3, and 4, you can remove it. Number 2, we have to keep it. Why number 3? Was that the question? Yeah, good idea, Video. Just you can review this video. To be honest, like the first thing I mentioned about the subject and the object, that is the technical grammar rule. But personally, I don't know, I just find it a bit confusing to think about what's the subject, what's the object in a complicated sentence. This little hack is a bit simpler. So the therapist she was seeing, we've got a noun here, pronoun. So I don't actually need this relative pronoun. Someone's asking about therapist. Yeah, and that's right. So the therapist is the subject. She was seeing the therapist in the second part, object. Okay. Let's move along. You can review this video and I'll talk more about it at the end of class as well. By the way, the other hack, don't forget, is just keep it in there. Don't worry if you can remove it or not, just leave it in there. But while you're reading, like when you're reading articles and stuff outside class, just look at the way the writer is using relative clauses. So you might see quite often that the relative pronoun is omitted just for efficiency. All right, so these are all defining relative clauses, which means they don't have commas and they give essential information. Okay, but let's talk about the other one, non-defining relative clauses. And I'm going to split this into two parts. Okay, so firstly here, sorry guys, I'll come to your questions at the end just so that we get through everything. Here's a picture of a hospital. The GSB hospital has 250 beds. It was renovated in 1999. So I've got two bits of information here, but this information is not essential. Like the GSB hospital has 250 beds. Well, I know the GSB hospital and I have a picture. I don't need a definition of it. I don't need extra information to understand which hospital. But this is interesting information and we can add it with a non-defining relative clause. So not essential information, just interesting. This is where we start to use commas. So the GSB hospital, comma, which was renovated in 1999, comma, has 250 beds. So still the base sentence is the GSB hospital has 250 beds. This is like, by the way, here's an interesting piece of information. And we use commas to show the reader that this is not essential information. The other thing to know is that when we have these commas, don't use that, okay? So only which, and if it's a person, only who. So for this one, we've got to forget about that. Good job. So why the comma here? It's because the comma is sort of enclosing the relative clause. So this comma and this comma contain that non-defining relative clause here. All right, your turn. Type into the chat box, the decision was made at 8 p.m. yesterday. The decision was not popular with the public. So just take a few seconds, put together a sentence with a non-defining relative clause, 2 commas around it. Let's see. Okay, very nice. So you can see we've got 2 different approaches happening here, depending on which information you think is the good to know information. Here's an example. The decision, comma, which was not popular with the general public, comma, was made at 8 p.m. yesterday. But some of you wrote the decision, comma, which was made at 8 p.m. yesterday, comma, was not popular. Both of them are okay in this case. Both of them make sense. Okay. Yeah, good job. Nice commas. All right, how about this one? My sister had to take 2 weeks off with the flu, 2 weeks off work. She had never taken a sick day before. Let's put these 2 together, non-defining relative clause. Okay, into the chat box. Excellent. All right. My sister, comma, who had never taken a sick day before, comma, had to take 2 weeks off with the flu. You can also do it the other way. My sister, comma, who had to take 2 weeks off with the flu, comma, had never taken a sick day before. Asil, yeah, you can write that. My sister, who had never taken a sick day before, took 2 weeks off. Yeah, good. So this is non-defining because I probably, in this situation, I have just one sister, so I don't need to define more about her. So this is just my one sister. And by the way, she had never taken a sick day before. She had to take 2 weeks off. All right, so over to you. I want you to write a sentence or 3 sentences for me into the chat box. You have to use your imagination a bit here. I want you to create sentences with non-defining relative clause. So think of a base sentence like my country is something, and then tell me a little bit of extra information in here. My country, which blah, 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 is something. Same with number 2, my best friend. Give me some non-essential information and finish the sentence here. Okay, 1.5 minutes for this. Here we go. Great, Ola. Good first sentence. All right. Thank you, guys. Did I click the clock? I don't know. Let me read a couple. These are so good. Well done. Prashanthi, make sure you add the end of that sentence because you've got my best friend, comma, who is working at the bank, comma. Then you need the real sentence. My best friend, comma, who is working at a bank, is sick today. So make sure you have the end of the sentence or it will be a fragment. Natalia, sorry, my best friend, comma, who visited my house yesterday, comma, is applying to college. Well done. Raquel, my home, comma, which is in Midtown, comma, is pretty close to downtown. Well done. Chandu, my best friend, comma, who has immense talent, comma, received a job in a top company. Great. Couple more. You guys are doing really well. Sarah, my country, comma, which is rich in culture, comma, is very popular. Excellent. So good. So remember with these ones, you can't use that, only which or who. Prashanthi, put the commas in there. Good. Maria, my boyfriend has finished. All right. Thank you, guys. I didn't do an example here. I'll give you my own example, perhaps. My country, which is in the Southern Hemisphere, is warming up at the moment. Uh, my best friend who recently had a baby has returned to work. My home, which is quite messy at the moment, is located near the beach. Great, really good job. So just remember those commas and know that. All right, number 2, non-defining relative clauses. There's another really common type of non-defining relative clause. And then we're almost at the end, by the way. Okay, so here, the elderly woman had to wait 16 hours in the hospital waiting room. This is unacceptable. Okay, so in this sentence or this situation here, I want to give information about the whole situation. So we can use a comma and which to refer to an entire sentence or an entire situation, not just a thing or a person. So let me just go backwards. In these sentences, we were giving information about this thing, my country, my best friend, my home. But sometimes I want to talk about the whole sentence, the whole situation. So this woman waited for hours and hours. I want to say this situation is unacceptable. Okay, and I can do that with comma, which. So that means this whole situation is unacceptable, not the waiting room. I mean the whole thing. The elderly woman had to wait 16 hours in the hospital waiting room, comma, which is unacceptable. Yeah, that's right. Asil, you could write that, the hospital's waiting room. Not necessary though. Yeah, good job. So comma, which is unacceptable. It basically means this whole situation. Okay. So again, I want you to make your own sentences here. Think of the ending. Create your own sentences with which to refer to the whole situation. Many parents had to homeschool their children during the pandemic, so I don't want information about the pandemic. I want you to tell me something about that situation. Many parents had to do this difficult thing during the pandemic, which something. And you'll need a verb here, like which was quite annoying, Felipe. Very good. Sarah, which is hectic. Yeah. Okay, so same thing, 1.5 minutes. Here we go. Magnificent. All right, now I want you to be the teacher for a moment. So whether you're on YouTube or here on Zoom, I want you to scroll back in your chat and have a look at some of your classmates' sentences. So some of you have written the whole thing, some of you just a chunk, and just check that it makes sense. You can give them some feedback, just write at with their name. See if you can find some good examples and maybe somewhere where you can offer some advice to that person. Let's do this. I'm going to start the clock again. We'll do another about 1 minute just to scroll back, read somebody's work and give them some feedback. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you everyone who provided feedback there. Well done. Let me read a couple of example sentences. Good. So Palak, you had some good ones. Palak, for number 2, the supermarket ran out of toilet paper, comma, which caused a panic among customers. Very good. So you're talking about the whole situation, not just toilet paper. Well done. Almadi, many parents had to homeschool their children during the pandemic, comma, which is not an easy job. An easy job. Well done. Dorothy, from Sunday, many businesses will be allowed to open again, comma, which will encourage people to go shopping again. Beautiful. Excellent work. Okay. Here are my examples. Many parents had to homeschool their children during the pandemic, which was extremely stressful. So the whole situation. The supermarket ran out of toilet paper, which created panic among shoppers. Similar sentence to Palak. From Sunday, many businesses will be allowed to open again, comma, which will boost economic activity. All right, final check. Oh, and before that though, a reminder, if you want to watch the last 6 grammar classes, which are in the recorded class library, if you want to have a one-on-one study plan session with a teacher, a 30-day intensive study plan, a 45-minute tutorial, access to all our live classes, full mock test with feedback, I really recommend this package, the Showtime package. If you are here on Zoom, I'll just share the link with you in the chat box there. And if you are on YouTube, if you type !Showtime into the chat, the link will pop up there and then you can read more about it and see if it's going to be for you. So YouTubers, type Showtime. Zoom people on E2, grab that link if you're interested in going from free to paid. All right, let's do our final check. Let's put it all together, everything that we have learned. And I'll answer your questions at the end as well, guys, here on Zoom. Okay, so I've got 5 sentences here. The instructions are which sentences are wrong. Now, not all of them are wrong. Some of them are correct. Your job is to fix the errors that you find, or fix the errors you find. You have 3 minutes to do it. I'm going to close the chat box for a moment just so you can concentrate. Here we go. All right. I just put in the chat box there to think about also whether it's defining or non-defining, like is the information essential or not? So for instance, number 1, the nurses, there's a problem here, but is this information essential? The nurses in this hospital are highly trained. The nurses are highly trained. Is this just good to know, or is it essential information for me to understand which nurses you're talking about? All right, so here we go. So the first one, the nurses that work in this hospital are highly trained. This is essential information, specific nurses. This could also be the nurses who. Number 2 and number 3 are correct. We don't need to change anything. Okay, but number 4, pop the commas here because this is not essential information. Jessica is still overseas. This is just extra information. She lives next door to me. And number 5, the vaccine he's been working on is due to be released in 6 months, comma, which is great news. Notice, by the way, there's another relative clause hiding, hiding here, the vaccine that he's been working on or which he's been working on. Lulu says, which are alarming? No, because I'm talking about this situation, like this is alarming, which is alarming, it is alarming. Not cases? I'm talking about the previous sentence. Good question. Yeah, give yourself a score. Chandu. Do you mean down here, Chandu, which is are? Okay, no, because news is uncountable. So the news is good. I saw the news, but not news, no, which is great news. Yeah, good question, Jay. Good answer, Prince. When we're speaking, how do we show that it's non-essential information? So I could say, Jessica, who lives next door to me, is still overseas, or Jessica, who lives next door to me, is overseas. So a little bit, yeah, of it is pausing. That's true. Christina's asking about whom. That is coming up next week. Yeah, good question as well. Okay, so quick recap and next step. So today we've covered defining relative clauses with who, which, and that, who, that, and which. We've looked at the use and non-use of relative pronouns. So that was the complicated bit. Can I take the relative pronoun out or not? And we've looked at two types of non-defining relative clauses. When it's extra information surrounded by commas, and when it's comma which to describe the whole situation. Next week, what we're going to do is look at whose, whom, and where. We're also going to look at reduced relative clauses. This is something that you'll see a lot in academic writing, and you probably will use it in your essays as well. So participles basically is what I'm talking about. For example, the people who were protesting were arrested. We actually can remove, in contrast to what I said today, we can remove this pronoun, but we also need to remove a little bit extra. So this sentence is okay. The people protesting were arrested. Another option is, another example is animals that are born in the zoo rarely return to the wild, or animals, remove that, born in the zoo rarely return to the wild. So these are reduced relative clauses, really important to know. So that's for next week. But for this week, extra practice, here are a few things for you to do. Number one, let me find this link for you. Hang on, just open it. Number one is to read this article about homeschooling. Hang on one second. If you're on YouTube, you'll just have to Google it. If you are, where's my link? If you're here on Zoom, it's a huge link. Sorry. Oh, is that right? Hang on. See if that link works. It's okay. Thanks, Ishmael. All right, sorry, it's enormous. If you're on YouTube, just Google the conversation Homeschooling Australia and you'll find this article. So this is for Sunday's Task 2 class coming up with Anna. And just good to read something. You'll probably see relative clauses in there. Sunday's class, you can also take a group class the following week and get some feedback on your writing. So that's number one. Number two, review Grammar for IELTS complex sentences. This is when you log into E2 Language, if you have a paid account, in the blue menu on the left, click on the recorded classes button and scroll through, you'll find Grammar for IELTS complex sentences. That will teach you all about subordinate clauses, subordinating conjunctions. Number three, grab the health topic toolkit. Again, it's in your course. Go to E2 Language, log in, click course, click general and academic vocabulary, and click topic toolkits. In there, you'll find lots of useful vocabulary and links to reading, listening, and videos related to the health topic. Number four is more. Review this class next week in the live class library. So I know some of you found it a bit confusing. It is a bit confusing. Come back and review it. This class will stay in the recorded class library and keep the rules fresh in your mind, particularly before next week's class. And then register for next Friday's Grammar for IELTS class, available to anyone with a paid membership at E2. Remember that starts from $44 is the cheapest one and goes up from there depending on what's involved in your package. Here is our live class calendar. So still coming up today, listening class, speaking class, writing masterclasses all weekend as well. And yeah, the Showtime package is the new one. If you're interested, YouTubers, type !Showtime to grab the link over there. And that brings us to the end of our class. Look at that. We are spot on 1 hour. We did it. Congratulations. And I'm just going to stay online for a couple of minutes here on Zoom. But thank you for watching on YouTube. Go to e2language.com, make a free account, sign in. And if you need any help, you can email hello@e2language.com. I'll see you next week in some more live